Tonight,
Happy anniversary, RCMP!
One of the most respected police forces in the world, with mistakes to learn from and hope for change, says Trudeau on marking 150 years of the RCMP. And India's G20 summit in the disputed area of Kashmir concludes, with China boycotting the event. Later in the show, an interview with Saamiyah Islam about an ice sport known as curling in Pakistan.
In terms of long-term training, eventually it'd be nice to have an indoor ice facility.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening. This is Muslim News Canada on Muslim Network TV. I'm Catherine Bullock. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police is marking this year its 150th anniversary. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says in a statement released yesterday that the police force is one of the most respected in the world. But he also acknowledged the mistakes made by the force. He emphasized the importance of learning from past errors and the hope for change. Acting RCMP Commissioner Mike Duhem says the anniversary calls for a reflection on where the force has come from and where it will head in the next 150 years. He says the RCMP has played a role in Canada's most difficult and dark moments. A new analysis published by a chief economist from Canada's housing agency shows Canada has the highest level of household debt in G7 countries. He says the country's household debt is increasing due to rising home prices. He says this makes the Canadian economy vulnerable to economic crises. In Canada, 3/4 of household debt is due to mortgages. During the 2008 recession, household debt made up 80% of the overall Canadian economy. It rose to 95% in 2010. In 2021, it exceeded its size. The analysis notes during the same period, household debts in the US, the UK, and Germany dropped. Muslim students from Kyungpook National University in South Korea are facing resistance from locals for constructing a bigger mosque. The university is in Daegu, South Korea's fourth largest city. The locals there are distributing pamphlets and putting up banners calling Muslims terrorists. Severed pig heads are often found outside the mosque. There are around 150 Muslim students in the university. They come from Muslim-majority countries. They have been praying for 9 years in a small house near the university. Now they need a bigger space. Their lawyer says there is no law against hate speech in South Korea, which makes it difficult to prove that they are being targeted. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari is praising China for boycotting the G20 meeting in Indian-administered Kashmir. Zardari says Beijing is acting as a responsible superpower. The third G20 summit in the disputed Himalayan region began on Monday and ends today. Kashmir is held by India and Pakistan in parts and claimed by both in full. A small sliver of the region is also controlled by China. A Chinese spokesperson told reporters on Friday that China is opposed to holding a G20 meeting in disputed territory, and it will not attend the summit. Pakistan and India have fought 3 wars over the region since 1947. Please stay tuned. We will join you after a short break. Curling is a very famous winter sport in Canada, of course, but do we ever think of it as a sport for Pakistan? We are joined now by Saamiyah Islam, who is the Director of Curling for the Winter Sport Federation Pakistan. Assalamu alaikum and thanks for joining us today.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
Now let's do some basics. When I think of Pakistan, I think of a hot country. I don't think of ice sports or winter sports. Tell us what's that all about?
Well, absolutely. And that's prior to this trip, that was my impression of Pakistan too. We often just went in the summer. So yes, that's how many of us think of Pakistan as a hot climate. But Pakistan has a Winter Sports Federation. They've been to multiple Olympics in skiing, alpine skiing. And now Pakistan is trying to further develop their winter sports into ice sports. So Pakistan is expanding into, or trying to expand into, curling, hockey, figure skating, and speed skating.
Well, we'll try to delve into that a little, but let's just do some even more basics. So I've met some Pakistanis who don't know what curling is. And when I typed in curling in Pakistan into Google, I got curling irons like for the hair. So tell us what curling is.
So curling is a sport played on ice. It was originally developed in Scotland. It's very popular here in Canada. There are lanes, sort of like bowling lanes, that are called sheets of curling. There's a target at each end, and there's these granite stones with handles. They're about 40 pounds, and you slide them along the ice from one end to the other. There's some sweeping involved to help propel the stones on the ice, and it can help with the direction. There's a lot of yelling involved if you've seen it on TV. Most of the teams have 4 players. It is an Olympic sport in the 4-player men's and women's disciplines, but also mixed doubles is a new Olympic sport. So there's lots of opportunities for Pakistanis to join in and play. Yeah, those are the basics. We I'm just sort of getting together our website and Facebook page, but I will put on sort of a learn to curl video on our Pakistan Curling Facebook page in English and Urdu for those who are interested.
And do you play yourself? How did you end up being the director of curling?
I do. So I grew up in northwestern Ontario, a little town called Ignace. I fashioned myself to be somewhat of an athlete. We tried out different winter sports. My mom actually curled with some ladies from work. And so when it was offered at school, I tried it out. My siblings also curl. So I got into it living up north. And then when I moved to Waterloo for university, I curled a bit recreationally. And then when I moved to Kingston afterwards, then I got into, just a recreational league again. But my kids, I have 2 sons, Bilal and Kamran, and they got into it as well. My older son, Bilal, was very infatuated with the sport from a young age. So I enrolled him, but because he was so young, I had to help out as a coach. And then from then I was hooked. And so I've been involved in youth curling for about 20 years. And then when Bilal started curling competitively, then I got my coaching credentials as well, and have continued to maintain that and further develop my coaching abilities. So I curl. I'm not, a superstar curler, but I curl multiple times a week, and I also still coach. So
So I grew up in Australia in the city of Perth, which in the whole city there was one ice rink for years. Actually, there was 2, and then one of them closed down. And I actually did go ice skating, but it is a little bit of a weird thing to do where they have to put so much electricity, all year round into keeping the ice frozen, and it's not something you can just go out on the street and play. So I'm just wondering about Pakistan. How many ice rinks are there, and why do they want to sort of invest this time and money into something that's not, let's say, natural environmentally?
So currently there are no indoor ice facilities in Pakistan. So I was recently there in January for the month, and we went to curling so the Winter Sports Federation in Pakistan is under the umbrella of the Pakistan Air Force. So we went to different northern communities, and we curled outdoors on lakes or on ice pads, like in Canada, how you would have the community ice rink in a park. There were some of those set up, but several of the locations that we went to were basically lakes or frozen water outdoors. So it was very natural. Pakistan, as I said, is also trying to develop hockey. So the last few years they've been handing out skates and sticks to different communities in the north. And so we went to those communities who are already, into the winter sports. We went to those communities, and then we were introducing curling this year as well.
So you're saying that in the north, okay, this is a very ignorant question, but in the north it's cold enough for the lakes to freeze?
Absolutely. So I had the opportunity to go to parts of Pakistan I had never been to before. You would feel like you were in the Rockies or the Alps or something beautiful, where the mountain ranges meet, snow-capped mountains, there's ski resorts. So beautiful, beautiful part of Pakistan that I feel like we don't hear of enough.
Now, to develop a body of athletes that would be at the level to compete at the international, you obviously have to have a very intensive training and a lot of people. So how are people in Pakistan reacting? I mean, do you have to bus people up to the north to the training facilities? Like, how's that unfolding?
So this year we did go to different communities and sort of, brought the curling to them. But then also the Winter Sports Federation had organized a national training camp and sort of a national ice sports competition in Nalthar, so at an Air Force base. So there were teams from each of the provinces, and then some teams who had, self-funded, and were all in Nalthar for the competition. So we had training for several days ahead of time. So there was curling, there was there was hockey, and some other, as I said, the skating and the speed skating. So we had training camps with coaches for the first few days, and then we had competitions. Now the curling in a few days, because of the amount of equipment that we had, I sort of modified what we were doing for the competition. So it wasn't a full game. We were just basically doing like a skills, like a shootout skills competition. So whoever was closest to the center of the target, closest to the button, they would accumulate points and they would win the competition. But in terms of long-term training, eventually it'd be nice to have an indoor ice facility. But as you say, the expense of that. So when we were speaking with the president of the Winter Sports Federation, they were talking about perhaps like a public private partnership to do that. I've also been in communication with a company in the States that has synthetic ice, and that's used for hockey training all the time. So if we can sort of modify that for curling, and then we can, they're modular systems that we can use in different parts of the country, and not just up in the north. Because even in the northern regions, there's a small window of training. So there's a month or two where you have good ice conditions. And even that with climate change, it's being affected. We went to a few areas where there should have been ice and there wasn't. So then I was doing classroom sessions and I took street curl, like floor curl sets to sort of show what the sport was about, but we didn't actually have ice because it wasn't cold enough, and it should have been.
Well, you obviously have your work cut out for you, but we're out of time in our interview. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing this unique sport in Pakistan.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. If you like what we do, please share, like, and subscribe. Please donate so that we can continue to amplify the voices of Muslims in Canada and abroad.